One of the many powerful products on the Salesforce shelf is Marketing Cloud. It has the capabilities to completely transform marketing strategies, creating highly targetable and effective campaigns with the added power of automation. Marketing Cloud has followed a similar path to other Salesforce products like Insurance Cloud, Manufacturing Cloud, and several others, in that the product contains technologies obtained through acquisitions and then folded into the existing Salesforce platform. The Marketing Cloud story really begins back in 2000 when a company called ExactTarget, an on-demand email marketing solution, began a series of acquisitions that stretched over a decade. ExactTarget's revenues grew rapidly with each acquisition until mid-2013, when the company was acquired itself by Salesforce and rebranded as Marketing Cloud. Today, Marketing Cloud is really a suite of products, each one capable of creating and generating highly effective email marketing actions. Because Marketing Cloud is made up of around a dozen different applications, knowing where to begin can be challenging for marketers. Hello, I'm Chris Henry, and you're listening to Ahead of the Curve, a podcast series produced by Gerent, a leading Salesforce Summit implementation partner. In this episode, we'll take a closer look at this complex suite of products through the eyes of Ryan Clayton, one of Gerent's top-level solution architects. Ryan has years of experience with Marketing Cloud, including how to help clients make the right choices with it. A good place to begin might be with the differences between Marketing Cloud and Salesforce's CRM function. Here's Ryan.
So Salesforce itself is a customer relationship management technology, while Marketing Cloud is more of a marketing automation technology with the powers of an ESP. And if we look at the comparisons of just email sends, Salesforce does have the ability to perform email sends, but they're limited, and if I recall correctly, based on the number of license you have. So you're kind of capped there. Where Marketing Cloud's more geared towards ESP, where you purchase those in bulk and you can send mass emails consistently out of the application. But beyond that, the Marketing Cloud suite goes into stuff like mobile, social, web personalization, custom reporting, so much more than just a generic ESP.
So would it be fair to say then that the Marketing Cloud takes off from the point that Salesforce stops? I mean, if Salesforce is a lead gathering and a lead analysis and a kind of a lead generator, Marketing Cloud takes off from that point?
Yeah. So in your example there, if you're using Salesforce as your lead gen tool, Marketing Cloud would be where you can start to nurture those leads to conversion.
Now, would you say the Marketing Cloud is more suited for an internal marketing team or for an agency? Which of those two parties would be more apt to sign on?
So actually, the Marketing Cloud account itself can be geared towards both scenarios, but the most common scenario is for an internal marketing team.
As we mentioned earlier, the scope and number of applications within Marketing Cloud can be challenging for clients, as Ryan confirms, but he has an effective strategy to counter that.
I would say the sheer size of the application is probably overwhelming to most people. Most users will have an experience with a smaller platform like a MailChimp or even a Pardot. Then having to transition to something like Marketing Cloud is a pretty tall task to take on because each section of the application operates different from one another.
Now, we're going to get into that a little bit more, but let me just ask you this before we do dive in. How do you then, as a solution architect, work around that?
So on this, for the most part, someone has to learn to crawl before they walk and then walk before they run, right? So It's the same sort of concept that we typically like to utilize. So in other words, start with something small and just kind of ease your way into it.
There are at least a dozen different applications within Marketing Cloud, all of which, taken together, serve up a very powerful suite of products for marketing teams. With that power comes complexity, which might be overwhelming for marketers. Well, Rome wasn't built in a day, and according to Ryan, there's a very straightforward way to start with Marketing Cloud.
When we talk about all the different various components of Marketing Cloud, those Salesforce will, provide the customer the best deal when they bundle things together. Gerent, we try to take the approach of phases. So kind of back to that crawl, walk, run sort of methodology. So when we have customers that are starting out and new to Marketing Cloud, we'll typically start in phase one with the core components. Those core components are typically Email Studio, Automation Studio, Web Studio, and Journey Builder. And these are the base building block for Marketing Cloud in general. They're the old exact target application, which eventually became Marketing Cloud before they started adding even more applications to the suite of Marketing Cloud. So since all those other applications that are part of the Marketing Cloud suite act differently, we could still tie them to the core component, which and again goes back to needing to understand the core of Marketing Cloud before progressing to these other applications.
Well, that certainly makes sense. So let's take a bit of a deep dive now into these four core components and start off with Email Studio. What makes it just more than just another email service provider?
So at its core, Email Studio is really just ESP. But if you take a look at how it ties to these other parts of the application suite, users can pretty much greatly expand on so many possibilities on the service itself. So if you take something like Journey Builder, for example, emails get sent through that service, but you now have the ability to expand and listen and take actions based off a subscriber interaction with your emails, and then provide them with steps that you would like to take based off those actions. Even within Email Studio, you can personalize small sections of an email. So maybe just a first name greeting, or the entire email can be completely auto-generated. That's fully dynamic based off of even attributes from Sales Cloud, if you prefer.
As Ryan says, Email Studio is more than just an email service provider. That's because it also contains the power of Einstein Analytics, which turns Email Studio into an ESP with AI.
Absolutely. So when you start to discuss AI and specifically Einstein, there are so many things that a marketer can learn that AI provides, anything between subscribers and even Email Studio, right? So Einstein can do everything from inform marketers from something like email saturation, which is whether or not they're getting too many or too little or just the right amount of emails, to something like insights on subject lines and the sentiment of the email. And then you could also look at the analytics based on a subscriber to see who is most likely to interact or what times they're potentially most likely to open the email.
So where else would Einstein be employed within Marketing Cloud? Is it right across all the different applications?
It's predominant in Email Studio and even Journey Builder. There are some Einstein-based activities functionality within Journey Builder, but you could also utilize it potentially in other portions of the application, even potentially Web Studio.
And again, I think the real call out here with Web Studio is how it allows a marketer to individually tailor a web page to a customer. Now, how does that help marketers?
So being that it's a web page hosting service, you can do anything from creating just a splash page that would host a web form to collect data, all the way up to like a microsite, right? So if we go to the use case of web forms, a web form can do pretty much anything you want it to do, depending on your use case. It can do anything from just capturing the submission to triggering like a welcome email, or even injecting somebody directly into a journey on injection. Granted, there's some development that needs to occur between there, but there's also drag and drop functionality that's similar to Email Studio. So if you don't have a developer on staff, or maybe they're tied up with other projects, you can definitely take a hold of that drag and drop functionality.
The true magic behind Marketing Cloud is how marketers can prepare their campaigns with precision and focus, and then automate those campaigns to work on their own, giving them not just powerful tools, but tools that can run automatically. Enter Automation Studio.
Marketers can automate tasks like imports from external services, maybe external SFTP or even Marketing Cloud's SFTP. You can export that data back out. You can schedule a simple email send, or even power segmentation. So companies can also use something like this process to perform functions like deleting contacts based off of CCPA and GDPR compliance, or even tie these automations to a journey and provide injection through the journeys based off of Automation Studio.
Is there any kind of self-contained automation in either of the other two applications that we've talked about, Web Studio and Email Studio, or is Automation Studio the one that really drives the whole automation process?
It for the most part drives that process. Now there's some ability to schedule sends in Email Studio, kind of be somewhat similar to a simple email activity in Automation Studio. But when you talk about Automation Studio and sending from there, there's a little bit more expanded functionality that you can perform in Automation Studio based off of just a simple schedule and send sort of scenario.
Journey Builders is probably it's the fourth of the four components and is potentially, I think, probably the most powerful of all. So give me a sense, Ryan, of how it can really elevate a marketing campaign.
So this is what I would consider your listen and take action tool. What it does is allows marketers to build pre-designated workflows and tailor that subscriber's experience based off of what interactions like an open, a click, or even an attribute from either a data extension or from Sales Cloud, and then really drive that interaction and tailor everything straight to that subscriber so it feels really personalized to them. But it doesn't really stop there, right? So let's say you have a campaign and you're just not getting those interactions that you're looking for through your subscribers through email. Well, we can start to then bake in messages from on the mobile side or target them through social media and then push all that data back to Sales Cloud if needed.
I'm getting the sense that going with this core group of products that Gerent recommends to clients just to get them up and running and familiar and comfortable with Marketing Cloud, it certainly doesn't mean that a client, has to settle for something less. Would you agree with that statement?
So I would. So I don't see it as a settling point, right? So I would consider it as a way to start the building block of success within the ecosystem. So look at it from this perspective. When you're checking the temperature of the water in a pool or a lake or whatever that water source may be, most people won't typically just go jump in and check that water temperature, right? You're going to dip a foot in, dip a hand in, and kind of get a feel for it, right? Mm-hmm. Similar sort of scenario. I mean, there's always going to be that person that takes that plunge, but there's also that person who takes that plunge encounters some sort of regret because they didn't check that water temperature beforehand, right? So same rule of thumb with Marketing Cloud. You don't want to necessarily just dive in without any sort of questions, just start all applications at once, right? Because if you acclimate yourself to the system, you're going to have a better rate of success all the way across the board.
Yeah, but there's a lot of power in these four core components anyway, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Well, the proof, as they say, is in the pudding. Ryan described several instances where Gerent implemented Marketing Cloud solutions using that core group of four applications we've talked about.
We have a client that works in the online education workspace that was looking to migrate to the Salesforce ecosystem. So that included Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, what have you. They were currently utilizing a homegrown ESP and were looking for a product that they could pretty much grow on in the future. So they had partnered with Gerent to help them guide them through the implementation process. Now, where that comes in terms of Marketing Cloud is we took them through that phased approach to get them really adjusted to those core products. So these users actually adapted real quick, faster than normal, to the nuances of Marketing Cloud from their previous ESP, and really started to dive deep into those advanced levels of utilization of the core application. So after a really short time frame, they ended up moving into building fully coded 100% dynamic emails to best scale their use of the application. And because they are fully comfortable with that, now they're taking on building journeys, sending out the automations and the emails. And now they're looking to expand their use of Marketing Cloud products and mesh it with their internal AI tool to potentially help have Interaction Studio power those interactions as well as their AI tool.
Was it a case of not so much throwing out the baby with the bathwater, but ditching the homegrown email service provider in favor of Email Studio? Or was there just no way of integrating Marketing Cloud's components with their homegrown system?
So when you talk about transitioning to Marketing Cloud and specifically something like an SAP package, those IP addresses don't typically get migrated over. So you really have to start fresh. And then the way they were building their emails were operating off of something called Jade, as opposed to just a pure HTML sort of layout. And their homegrown tool would build that email based off that Jade code. So they kind of did have to just start fresh and really dive into Marketing Cloud to get up and running. So they still have stuff running on their old ecosystem that they're still in the process of transitioning some of these other items over, like transactional emails and notifications, stuff like that. But the vast majority of their heavy sending is already within the application of Marketing Cloud. So we could talk about one more example here real quick for a client that's in the transportation workspace. So they purchased the Marketing Cloud core components along with Datorama and Interaction Studio as a complete bundle. Being that they were a smaller company with less developer resources, this phased approach really just kind of fit them like a glove, right? They just didn't have the bandwidth to take on every task at once. This client actually had 2 different ESPs they were using at the time and were wanting to downsize into one and kind of get that holistic view of subscribers in the Salesforce ecosystem. So implementing the core components of Marketing Cloud really helped them understand how Marketing Cloud operates as an ESP, which had some similarities with the 2 that they were using beforehand, but there definitely obviously some uniqueness because it's a different application. But it helped them piece those items together, and now they're sending all their large amounts of newsletter subscriptions from Marketing Cloud, looking to now transition the second ESP down. At the same time, they feel comfortable starting to take on the implementation of Interaction Studio to move on to their web-based personalization.
So basically they've done it the right way. They've started small and they're building off what they've already got and off their experience as they with Marketing Cloud as they go forward. Yeah.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. Now, is there any case that you know of where gerents had to go in and bail somebody out because they, as you said earlier, they jumped into the lake without testing the temperature of the water first?
Sure. So we've had clients come to us and they mentioned they were using a certain ESP and purchased Marketing Cloud and even something like Datorama. They felt as though it was a simple integration, and without even having their Marketing Cloud account set up, they decided to dive into Datorama to see if they can utilize it with their existing ESP. But they quickly came to realize that the setup wasn't as simple and straightforward as they thought, and needed us to come in and try to bail them out. So because they didn't even have their Marketing Cloud account configured yet, it was our suggestion that they start there and get everything migrated over and then go back to configuration of Datorama.
And what was the net result of all of that for them?
Well, the net result is that they would be able to pick up both applications and learn them one after the other, because they were a very small team and they were also launching a new business line at the same time. So they were stretched thin.
Wow. And so you basically straightened them out, got them out of the weeds and back onto the main road.
Yep. That was the overall goal there.
Yeah. Perfect. And I think that all underscores the importance of selecting an implementation partner that has the experience, that can kind of see the big picture and really guide the client through the forest and back out into the clearing.
Yeah, our goal in terms of Gerent is to make sure we get the highest user adoption possible, and that's why we like the phase approach overall.
There's no question that Marketing Cloud is a powerful suite of applications that can do pretty much anything that a marketing team wants it to do, from a simple email campaign to much more sophisticated marketing plans. In fact, there's probably not much it can't do. However, all that muscle can be overwhelming if it's not digested in small bites, which is why Ryan's approach of crawl, walk, run is the logical way to utilize the tools, and why Gerent is the ideal implementation partner to bring in. You've been listening to Ahead of the Curve, produced by Gerent in cooperation with Salesforce. Thanks to Ryan Clayton for sharing his experience and know-how with Marketing Cloud. Technical producer of Ahead of the Curve is Dave Grine from the Acme Podcasting Company in Toronto. I'm Chris Henry. Thanks for joining us.